After surviving countless horrors throughout his life, Vietnam veteran John Rambo has long abandoned the world of war. Nearly 2 decades after rescuing his former commanding officer, Colonel Sam Troutman, Rambo now lives a quiet and secluded life in a small village in Thailand near the Burmese border. Far removed from the chaos that once defined him, he spends his days capturing venomous snakes for local entertainers and ferrying villagers along the river in his worn-out boat. But beneath the calm exterior still lies a battle-hardened warrior haunted by the ghosts of his violent past. John Rambo carefully places a captured venomous snake inside a rusted cage when a missionary named Michael Burnett approaches him. Michael asks Rambo if he can take him and his group into Burma for a humanitarian mission, explaining that Rambo is the only man who truly knows the dangerous river routes near the border. But Rambo immediately refuses, warning them that Burma has become a brutal war zone where innocent people disappear every day. Michael insists, telling Rambo this is already their 5th mission into the country and that they fully understand the risks involved. Even Michael's fiancée, Sarah Miller, steps forward and tries to persuade him, believing there is still good left in the hardened veteran. But Rambo remains cold and distant, finally telling them to leave before walking away from the conversation. Later that night, the river lies in complete silence when Rambo notices someone on his boat. To his surprise, he finds Sarah waiting for him alone in the darkness. As he approaches her, Sarah pleads with him one last time, refusing to believe that a man who once fought to protect others could simply turn his back on those suffering across the border. Rambo warns her that the mission will likely get them all killed, but Sarah refuses to back down. Her unwavering determination slowly breaks through the walls Rambo has built around himself for years. After a long moment of silence, he finally changes his mind and reluctantly agrees to take them into Burma. The following morning, thick fog hangs above the river as Rambo pilots his boat toward the Burmese border with Michael and the missionary team on board. As the journey begins, Sarah quietly thanks Rambo again for agreeing to help them and begins asking about his past after learning that he served as a Vietnam veteran back in 1967. Before Rambo can answer, Michael interrupts and tells Sarah to leave him alone, sensing that the soldier prefers silence over conversation. While traveling deeper into Burma, the group suddenly spots a gang of Burmese pirates patrolling the river ahead. Realizing the danger immediately, John Rambo quietly orders everyone to stay low and remain completely silent as the boat slowly drifts past them. The missionaries obey without hesitation, barely breathing as the pirates watch from a distance. For a brief moment, it seems like they have passed safely, and the group begins quietly arguing about whether they should continue the mission or turn back while they still can. But the tension instantly shatters when another boat suddenly speeds toward them and fires a warning shot across the water, sending everyone into panic. The pirates quickly surround Rambo's boat and point their weapons directly at the missionaries, claiming that the river belongs to them and accusing the group of disrespect for crossing through their territory without permission. The leader soon notices Sarah Miller, the only woman on board, and orders Rambo to bring her over to their boat. Rambo refuses without hesitation and instead tells the pirates to take anything they want except Sarah. Growing more impatient, the pirates warn that they will execute everyone unless Sarah is brought to their boat. As the standoff reaches its breaking point and the pirates prepare to open fire, Rambo's instincts suddenly take over. In one swift motion, he draws his pistol and kills the pirates with ruthless precision, firing so quickly that none of them even get the chance to fight back. The river falls silent once again as the shocked missionaries stare at the bodies floating beside the boat. Michael Burnett angrily confronts Rambo over the violence, but Rambo erupts in frustration and tells him that the pirates were about to abuse Sarah and murder them all if he had done nothing. Meanwhile, the tension on board grows even heavier as Rambo suggests returning to Thailand before things become even worse. But Sarah interrupts him and desperately begs him to continue the journey, refusing to abandon the people waiting for their help across the border. After a long silence, Rambo slowly calms himself and reluctantly agrees to proceed deeper into Burma. The following morning, thick mist covers the jungle river as the boat finally reaches a remote village inside Burma. The missionaries immediately begin unloading supplies and packing their equipment before heading inland. Before leaving, Michael coldly tells Rambo that he intends to report what happened on the river and adds that he no longer needs his help because he plans to find another way back on his own. Sarah returns to Rambo one final time before departing with the group, and as a quiet gesture of gratitude, she places a small crucifix into his hand before walking away into the jungle. The missionaries arrive at the remote village and immediately begin helping the local people in every way they can. Some teach passages from the Bible to the children, while others distribute food, medicine, and supplies to the starving villagers. Michael Burnett moves through the crowded huts, treating the wounded and comforting the sick as the exhausted villagers slowly begin to smile again. But the peaceful moment suddenly turns into chaos when a massive explosion erupts nearby. More explosions follow across the village, tearing through homes and setting the entire area ablaze. Burmese soldiers storm into the village and immediately begin slaughtering civilians, as terrified villagers run in every direction searching for shelter. Gunfire echoes through the burning streets while families are mercilessly gunned down trying to escape. The missionaries scatter alongside the villagers, desperately attempting to survive the massacre. But the soldiers eventually overwhelm the village and capture several survivors, including the entire missionary team. Bound and helpless, the prisoners are dragged away into the jungle and taken to a military camp deep inside Burma. More than a week passes before word finally reaches Thailand. Pastor Arthur Marsh arrives at John Rambo's home late at night. He explains that Michael and the missionaries were supposed to return days ago, but with government assistance and embassy support in Thailand moving too slowly, he has no choice but to hire a group of mercenaries to search for them. Pastor Marsh asks Rambo to guide the team back to the same location where he dropped the missionaries off, adding that the Karen rebels in Burma have provided information about where the prisoners may be held. Without wasting a single word, Rambo quietly begins preparing weapons and gathering the equipment he will need for the mission ahead. The following day, Rambo travels into Burma alongside a 5-man mercenary team led by Lewis, a short-tempered and arrogant soldier who constantly mocks Rambo for being nothing more than a silent boatman. During the journey, Lewis mistakes Rambo's silence for fear and repeatedly belittles him in front of the others, unaware that the quiet veteran beside him is far more dangerous than anyone on board. Meanwhile, the team finally reaches the same riverbank where Rambo previously dropped off the missionaries. Waiting for them are 2 Karen rebels, one of them only a young boy. Rambo grabs his gear and prepares to join the group, but Lewis immediately stops him and mockingly reminds him that he is only there to operate the boat. Realizing there is no point arguing, Rambo silently returns to the vessel while the mercenaries and Karen rebels continue deeper into the jungle alone. After hours of hiking, they eventually arrive at the destroyed village and discover a horrifying scene filled with rotting corpses, burned homes, and swarms of flies covering the dead bodies scattered across the ground. Before searching the area, the Karen rebels warn the mercenaries that landmines may still be hidden nearby beneath the dirt and rubble. The team carefully discusses their next move and agrees that if the situation becomes too dangerous, they will abandon the mission and leave immediately. But just as they prepare to continue toward the location where the missionaries are believed to be held, one of the Karen fighters suddenly spots a military truck approaching the village. Realizing soldiers are nearby, everyone quickly hides among the ruins and waits in silence as the vehicle slowly enters the destroyed village. The military truck suddenly stops in the middle of the ruined village, and several terrified prisoners are forced out before being lined up by Burmese soldiers. Treating the captives like part of a cruel game, the soldiers place bets and scatter landmines across an open field before ordering the civilians to run. The mercenaries watch from hiding, unwilling to interfere, while Lewis insists that any gunfire could alert the nearby army camp. But just as a soldier prepares to execute one of the prisoners, John Rambo suddenly fires an arrow from the shadows. Within seconds, Rambo silently kills every soldier with flawless precision, dropping them one after another before they can even react. The mercenaries are left stunned by Rambo's deadly skills, though some become furious, believing the missing soldiers will soon alert the entire camp. Lewis immediately decides to abandon the mission, but Rambo quickly points an arrow at his head and warns him that nobody is leaving. After the tension settles, the group reluctantly agrees to continue toward the lieutenant's camp. Later that night, the team infiltrates the enemy camp using the truck taken from the soldiers that Rambo killed earlier. Schoolboy quietly takes position in the sniper tower after killing the guard, while the others spread through the camp searching for the hostages. Rambo eventually finds Michael Burnett locked inside a hut and instructed him to stay hidden while he searches for Sarah Miller. He later discovers Sarah imprisoned beneath a stilt house beside a pig pen, but before he can rescue her, a soldier drags her upstairs. Rambo follows them and brutally kills the soldier with his bare hands before escaping with Sarah into the darkness. Lewis and the mercenaries reach the extraction point and decide to leave without waiting for Rambo and Sarah. Michael desperately tries to stop them, but Lewis threatens him with a knife and forces him to follow. As Rambo and Sarah run toward the team, two soldiers suddenly spot them and prepare to fire, but both are instantly killed by sniper shots from above. Schoolboy has stayed behind, refusing to leave Rambo behind. As dawn breaks over the jungle, the Burmese soldiers discover the bodies scattered throughout their camp and realize their prisoners have escaped. Enraged by the death of one of his officers, the lieutenant immediately mobilizes his forces. Trucks roar to life as heavily armed soldiers flood the jungle, launching a relentless manhunt with tracking dogs, mortar fire, and explosives tearing through the dense forest. Amid the chaos, a nearby blast strikes Lewis, severely injuring his leg. Unable to move at full speed, he becomes a burden to the group, allowing the pursuing soldiers to rapidly close the distance. Meanwhile, Rambo, Sarah Miller, and Schoolboy continue toward the shoreline until they realize the tracking dogs have picked up Sarah's scent. Knowing they won't outrun the pursuit, Rambo decides to lure the soldiers away. He asks Sarah for a strip of her clothing before ordering Schoolboy to fire a shot into the air, drawing the enemy toward his position. Racing back to an unexploded bomb they had passed earlier, Rambo quickly transforms it into a deadly trap by attaching Sarah's cloth to its trigger. Moments after escaping into the jungle, the pursuing soldiers spot the cloth and unknowingly set off the device. A massive explosion tears through the forest, engulfing the area in a towering fireball. The blast nearly catches Rambo as he dives to safety, narrowly escaping the inferno. While Rambo distracts the enemy, Sarah and Schoolboy finally reach the shoreline, only to discover the remaining mercenaries already surrounded at gunpoint beside the boat. Watching through his sniper scope, Schoolboy can do nothing as the Burmese soldiers mercilessly beat the prisoners. The lieutenant moves down the line, brutalizing each captive before turning his attention to Lewis. When Lewis refuses to submit, the officer viciously drives a stick into his wounded leg, forcing him to cry out in agony. Satisfied, the soldiers raise their rifles and prepare to execute the entire group. Just as the soldiers prepare to open fire, Rambo bursts from the jungle and decapitates one of them with his bolo knife. Before the others can react, he climbs behind a mounted .50 caliber machine gun and unleashes a devastating barrage across the shoreline. The heavy rounds tear through the Burmese soldiers, cutting them down in seconds and throwing the entire area into turmoil. Moments later, Karen rebels arrive to reinforce the rescue team, transforming the rescue into a full-scale battle as gunfire erupts from every direction. An attack boat races in to support the Burmese forces, spraying the riverbank with heavy fire and killing several rebels while a bullet strikes Rambo in the shoulder, nearly knocking him off the gun. More enemy reinforcements soon arrive in military trucks, but Rambo turns the mounted weapon toward them, ripping through the advancing soldiers before they can even return fire. As the fighting reaches its climax, one of the Karen rebels fires a bazooka at the attack boat, blowing it apart in a massive explosion that sends flames soaring across the river. Despite the overwhelming resistance, Rambo refuses to let up. The mounted machine gun continues roaring as the remaining Burmese troops are relentlessly driven back, allowing the mercenaries to arm themselves and rejoin the fight. With the enemy line rapidly collapsing, the lieutenant realizes defeat is inevitable and attempts to escape up the hillside. He doesn't get far. Rambo intercepts him without hesitation, driving his knife into the officer before finishing him with a brutal slash, bringing the ruthless commander's reign of terror to a violent end. Leaderless and overwhelmed, The surviving Burmese soldiers abandon the fight and retreat into the jungle. As the gunfire finally fades, an uneasy silence settles over the riverbank. The Karen rebels move in to secure the area, while Michael Burnett and Sarah Miller are finally reunited with the rest of their group. After everything they've endured, words are no longer necessary. Rambo quietly watches the survivors one last time before turning away without waiting for recognition. Far from the horrors of war, the story shifts to Bowie, Arizona, where Rambo finally returns to his hometown. After decades of wandering from one war to the next, he slowly walks toward his family's ranch, finally returning to the place he once left behind.